At 6,000 yards from Omaha Beach, two American tank commanders stared at the same ocean and made two different decisions. One of them sent his tanks into the water. The other did not. By the end of that morning, one decision had drowned 27 tanks and dozens of men at the bottom of the English Channel. The other decision put working tanks on the beach when the infantry needed them most. This is the story of the Sherman DD, a tank designed to swim across a battlefield, the engineering that made it possible, the training that proved it could work, and the morning when the English Channel decided which commander's gamble was right. By late 1942, Allied planners faced a problem with no good solution. The failed raid at Dieppe had proven something brutal. Infantry landing on a defended beach without armored support died in horrifying numbers. Tanks needed to land with the first wave, not minutes later, not hours later, but in the same moment soldiers hit the sand. But landing craft were scarce, vulnerable, and slow. Every tank that had to wait for a beach landing craft was a tank that arrived too late to matter. A Hungarian engineer living in Britain named Nicholas Straussler had an answer that sounded almost absurd. What if the tank didn't need a landing craft at all? What if it could swim? Straussler's solution was a canvas screen, a collapsible flotation skirt that surrounded the tank's hull, raised by compressed air, creating enough displacement to keep a 30-ton Sherman afloat. Behind the tank, two propellers connected to the transmission provided propulsion through the water. In calm conditions, a Sherman DD could make 4 knots, slow, but enough to cross several thousand yards of open water under its own power. The British and American soldiers who saw it had a simpler name for it: Donald Duck. General Percy Hobart took command of testing and deploying this technology alongside an entire division of specialized vehicles: flame-throwing tanks, mine-clearing tanks, bridge-laying tanks. They became known as Hobart's Bunnies. But the Duplex Drive Sherman was the most ambitious of all of them. It asked tank crews to trust that a few feet of waterproofed canvas would keep them from sinking in the same ocean that swallowed ships. Training took place at secret facilities: Fritton Lake, Stokes Bay. Crews practiced launching their tanks from landing craft thousands of yards offshore and swimming them to a beach under their own power. First, Lieutenant Edward Sledge of the 741st Tank Battalion would later describe the confidence his men felt. In all their training in England, they had not lost a single DD tank. That confidence was about to meet the English Channel on the worst possible morning to test it. The plan for June 6, 1944, called for 64 Sherman DD tanks to support the American landing at Omaha Beach: 32 from the 741st Tank Battalion, 32 from the 743rd. Both battalions trained identically. Both used the same equipment. Both shared the same mission. Their experiences that morning would be nothing alike. At approximately 0530 hours, landing craft carrying the 741st tanks were in position roughly 6,000 yards from the beach. The sea was rough, much rougher than anything the crews had trained in. Captain James Thornton of Company B and Captain Charles Young of Company C discussed it by radio. Both men agreed. The advantage of getting tanks ashore early justified the risk of launching in heavy seas. They launched. Of the 32 Duplex Drive tanks of the 741st Tank Battalion, 27 sank in the English Channel. The sea came directly over the canvas screens. Water poured into the holes. Tanks designed to float in calm water simply could not survive 4-foot swells driven by wind and current. Inside those sinking tanks were 5-man crews. Most of them never escaped. A few miles to the west, the 743rd Tank Battalion's commander made a different choice. Captain Ned Elder looked at the same churning sea and decided his tanks would not swim. Instead, the landing craft themselves would carry the Shermans directly onto the beach, risking the vulnerable LCTs to enemy fire rather than risking the tanks to the ocean. It worked. Of the 743rd's tanks, the overwhelming majority reached Omaha Beach intact and functioning. They arrived under direct German fire, exposed and vulnerable, but they arrived with working guns, manned by living crews. 2 commanders, the same equipment, the same impossible morning. One decision cost dozens of lives and left the eastern half of Omaha Beach without armored support, precisely when the infantry needed it most. The other decision adapted to reality and put fighting tanks on the sand. The consequences on the beach were immediate and brutal. Where the 741st's tanks had sunk, American infantry hit Omaha's beaches with almost no armored support. They faced German machine gun positions, mortars, and artillery with little more than rifles and their own courage. Casualties in those sectors were catastrophic. This is often remembered as the disaster of Omaha Beach, but it was not a uniform disaster. It was localized, a consequence of where the ocean happened to be roughest and which commander happened to be making decisions in that specific stretch of water. A few miles away at Utah Beach, conditions were calmer. The Duplex Drive tanks launched as planned and swam to shore largely intact, providing exactly the kind of immediate armored support the entire concept had promised. At the British and Canadian beaches, Gold, Juno, and Sword, Hobart's funnies performed close to their design intention. DD tanks waded ashore, inflated their screens, and began engaging German fortifications almost immediately. Infantry advanced behind armor that was actually there. The Sherman DD was not a failure of engineering. Nicholas Straussler's flotation system worked exactly as designed, in the conditions it was designed for. It was a failure of margin. A system with almost no tolerance for the one variable nobody could control. On June 6, 1944, the sea itself. The technical specifications had never accounted for what happened when a 4-foot swell met a canvas screen built to handle calm water and a gentle current. The tanks weren't destroyed by enemy fire. They were defeated by physics in transit before they ever reached the fight they were built for. Today, the wreckage of those tanks still lies on the floor of the English Channel. Marine archaeologists have located many of the sunken Shermans of the 741st using sonar, examining them with remote vehicles to understand exactly what happened in those final minutes before they went under. Most were never recovered. Their crews remain where they fell, in the only resting place that war chose for them. Only one surviving Sherman DD still exists today, with its original canvas flotation screen intact. A fragile, almost accidental survivor of a system that was meant to be temporary by design. The Sherman DD's story raises a question that echoes through every chapter of military engineering. How much risk is acceptable when the alternative is sending infantry onto a beach with no protection at all? Hobart and his planners weighed the math and decided that even imperfect armored support, delivered early, was worth the gamble of losing some tanks to bad weather. For the 743rd Tank Battalion's sector, that gamble never had to be tested. Elder made the call that avoided it entirely. For the 741st Sector, the gamble failed in the worst possible way. 27 tanks, dozens of men, lost before the invasion of Europe had even truly begun. The same machine, the same mission, the same morning. One decision saved lives. The other became one of D-Day's quietest tragedies, overshadowed by the chaos on the sand, but no less devastating to the men who never made it that far. The Sherman DD's story connects to a broader pattern in military history that Iron Histories will return to again and again. The gap between what a machine promises on paper and what it can actually survive in the one environment no engineer can fully predict. The next episode continues the story of D-Day's specialized armor, the flame-throwing crocodile, and the bunker-busting avorari that proved exactly how effective Hobart's unconventional thinking could be when the conditions cooperated. But first, I want to know what you think. Given the same information Thornton and Young had that morning, rough seas, 6,000 yards to the beach, infantry waiting with no armored support, would you have launched? Leave your argument below. And remember the men who made that decision for real, with no chance to take it back. If this is the military history you've been looking for, subscribe to Iron Histories. Every war machine has a biography.